Hello all and welcome back to another wonderful video. Today I want to talk about Generation 5 of My Little Pony. It's right around the corner and it's going to start with a big movie that I'm sure many of us are excited for. One thing that hasn't been clear, however, is what happened between Gen 4 and Gen 5. What happened after Season 9? Today, we're going to be answering that question, actually. That's right, I did a switcheroo on you. I told you it's going to be about Generation 5, but we're going to be switching it around and we're going to be talking about Generation 4 and what happened between Generation 4 and Generation 5. More specifically, what happened after Season 9. As hard as it may be to believe at first, the answers to everything that has happened before the epilogue is actually readily available to us all. Shortly after Season 9 came out, or after it came to an end, I should say, it was announced that there would be a Season 10 of Friendship is Magic. The only catch was that it has to be shared via the comics, and so we actually have a lot of answers to some questions that we had about the show. But not only that, they created new questions and also retconned a few things in Generation 4 that could actually tie into Gen 5 to some degree. That's right, we did another switcheroo. It's actually about Gen 5 and Gen 4. Haha! First things first, and this isn't super important by any means, but I do want to mention it. The literal first thing that they do in the comics in Season 10 is confirm that Lyra and Bonbon as getting married. They confirm that they got married. It's like literally one of the first lines of the comic. Pinkie Pie says something along the lines of, "I heard about you two, I'm so happy for you." And that's pretty much it about that. Like I said, it's not anything super important by any means, but if you are a big fan of those two, if you are fans of Lyra and Bonbon, then you're gonna love Season 10 because they actually get a few moments, and it's great every single time they get a little moment or anything like that. Honestly, every single panel that they're in the comics are just great. But back on track, the Season 10 pretty much starts off with Twilight basically deciding that she needs to form different teams, and she is in the process of forming these different teams. And her idea is to send these different teams to different parts of the world as ambassadors of friendship. The ultimate goal here is to bring friendship to every corner of the world, such as places like Capra's hometown or Zecoras Hometown, because they are very far away and not much is known about them, and they haven't really had any interactions whatsoever with Equestria and the ponies and things like that, other than rumors and speculation and things like that. Zecoras Hometown is actually our first stop in the comics, and really the most interesting stop in my opinion. I was always fascinated with Zecora in the past, where she came from or what her deal was and things like that. Basically, she was extremely mysterious from the very first episode that she was introduced to every single episode that she appeared in after that. She was always very mysterious, and I always wanted to know more about her ever since I saw her, ever since she was introduced. It was really interesting. I just wanted to know more. Now, before I continue any further, I do want to mention that there are spoilers, of course, for anyone that wants to read the Season 10 comics without any of this information, because there are going to be some spoilers here. I'm basically going to sort of tell you all the important stuff that happens in Season 10, but let's continue anyway. Now, Zecora, like I said, it starts off with her. It starts off with like a 3 comic issue about Zecora and where she was from and things like that. She is from a very far away land filled with all kinds of different creatures, from kelpies to abatas, which I didn't even know were a thing till this. Like, I knew what kelpies were, but I didn't know what abatas were, and I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that right, but that's how they spell it, so. But I didn't know they were a thing until this, but anyway, kelpies, of course, have the power to control water and manipulate water. There's one character in there that is actually, like, basically made of water or something like that. It's a little weird, but it's really interesting. I love that character. And then, of course, abatas, they have powers as well, and their powers are a little bit unclear. As they stated in the comic, it was something along the lines of they have magic that take the form of different things, such as this character's super speed or this character's ability to talk to plants. So it's very unclear if those are the only 2 powers you can get as an abata, but maybe you can get more, maybe you can get nothing. I don't know. It's not really clear enough, but interestingly enough, this is technically our first retcon. Our first retcon comes here in this issue where they start talking about this stuff, and that has to do with the creatures being able to earn cutie marks. And that's something that I should clarify a little bit more on. A retcon is basically something where they they take a pre-established lore or pre-established history or something like that, and they do something later on in the series to sort of change that lore, to sort of change what that means, or kind of change the past, so to speak. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically they change the rules a little bit. They change the history, they change the lore a little bit, and the idea of a retcon is that they can do it in a natural way that sort of flows and stuff. And I think they did that well here. But essentially, that is the retcon. That's pretty cool. According to season 10, cutie marks aren't just for ponies, whereas before it was kind of mostly established that it was only for ponies, but it was very unclear if there was any cases where that could be possible. I remember there was one episode where the Cutie Mark Crusaders were trying to give a griffin a cutie mark and everything like that, and they tried everything, they couldn't do it, and Twilight basically told them that it was only for ponies. But here we are here now. It's been retconned in season 10. Zebras can get cutie marks, these abatas can get cutie marks, these kelpies can get cutie marks. It's very interesting. And the one thing that they do make very clear right from the get-go is that these cutie marks aren't anything magical. At least for the zebras. At least for the zebras, it's not magical, because they specifically mention that for the zebras, it is more of a symbol of their life and not a magical destiny. Still, though, this is pretty big news because it means cutie marks don't necessarily work the way that we've always assumed they do. And this could have some ties to the way cutie marks work in Gen 5. If you guys don't know, Gen 5 is sort of changing the way cutie marks work. At least that's what it seems like so far, because in all the material that we've seen, the cutie marks are always on only one side of their body. And we don't exactly know why, but maybe some force like the zebras or another creature decided to try and remove cutie marks altogether because of inequality or something like that, and maybe they attempted to change them forever or remove them forever and only partially succeeded to some degree. We know it is possible to remove cutie marks, we know it's possible to affect them in different ways, so maybe that's what happened. But we can only really speculate on this because we don't know yet, and honestly, the comics give us a lot more to work with in terms of speculating on what the deal is with cutie marks and stuff, because it essentially retconned the way they worked. So it also shows us that, you know, the cutie marks can change and work differently, and they can do that in a safe way that doesn't have to break canon. Anyway, moving on, we learn more about Zecoras Past and why she speaks in rhymes all the time. If you guys are curious of that, essentially it's only because that's how spells are typically performed, and she is obsessed with magic. Basically, from the very first moment that she learns that magic is a thing, she is obsessed with it and wants to be able to perform magic herself. Unfortunately, that's not possible for zebras. Of course, we all know she kind of finds a workaround because she does potions and stuff like that, but she gets so obsessed with this magic stuff that it actually cost her her friends, and she ends up leaving the town altogether because of it. In present day, of course, they have returned, and sadly their hometown is under attack by this weird creature, and they have to go and deal with it. The leader of the town basically sends them out into the desert to go after this thing to stop it for good. Now, this is a really interesting part of the comics, because as they go on this journey, they run across this weird encounter, and they solve it, and then they finally find this weird temple in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And it is crazy because that temple has a tree of harmony inside of it. And I'm not even like exaggerating or anything like that. It's a tree that looks exactly like the Tree of Harmony in Equestria. You know, the one that we all know from the show and things like that. It's just there in the middle of a temple, in the middle of a desert, in the middle of nowhere, and no one knows why until Zecora accidentally touches it. After touching it, she learns what has to be done. Sort of. She sort of learns what has to be done. So she gathers all her friends, and together they form the Elements of Harmony, just like Twilight and her friends did in the first season. It's actually really amazing the way that they do this, and it's essentially where the next retcon comes in, because we've always been told that there's only the original 6 Elements of Harmony, and here they are again, new characters getting these Elements of Harmony, and it's a very weird situation. It's very odd throughout the rest of season 10 of the comics. The other teams who were sent out to bring friendship to other lands encounter places that aren't too nice, but also have a Tree of Harmony in there. And it just so happens that people like Capper, Zecora, that weird pirate bird lady from the MLP movie, and so on, are actually their own elements of harmony, and they use trees from their own respective towns to bring peace to their towns and sort of save the day at their towns and stuff like that. And like I said, this is where the retcon comes in. It turns out that there's actually, the Elements of Harmony has been an umbrella term this entire time, and that there's actually 5 different sets or 5 different bonds with a secret 6th bond out there, which of course the 6th bond, of course, being the one that Twilight and her friends seemingly have. At least that's what we're led to believe in the comics so far. This is a pretty big retcon and could mean many things, and it could help us understand things even better in Gen 5, because we've gotten stuff in the past about Gen 5, if you guys don't know, that heavily suggests that Sunny Star Scout and her friends are going to be elements of harmony, that they're going to have their own elements, including things like hope, creativity, courage, etc., etc. This is heavily speculated on. It makes a lot of sense given some of the leaks that we've gotten in the past, and it's very confusing. We know from the show that there should not be possible for there to be new elements or anything like that, or at least that doesn't make a lot of sense. But my own theory is that maybe Twilight and her friends decided to make new elements of something like that, so that if something happens to them, they'll be able to do a thing. But that's a whole nother thing. With this information from Season 10, it starts to make more sense about this elements of harmony thing, the fact that there's new ones and stuff like that, because the comics kind of end shortly after they learn about the Knights of Harmony. The Knights of Harmony were the ones to create all 6 bonds and the temples and stuff like that. For some reason, they want to destroy all of them, but we don't know why yet. The last issue of this season, or this little arc that they're doing, is going to come out next month, so we're going to have to wait until then to have a final answer on why they want to destroy these and things like that. But in the last issue that we did see, these Knights of Harmony invaded Canterlot, they attacked, they did some damage, and they sort of took over a little bit, and it sort of leaves us with the cliffhanger that, like I said, we're going to have to wait a month to get any answers from. But since we know Twilight and her friends have to survive this because of the epilogue at the end of the thing, plus the fact that we know there's going to be more comics after this arc and things like that, possible that the reason that they are still alive and things like that is that they somehow defeat them. They somehow defeat these Knights of Harmony. Maybe they reason with them. Who knows? But combining that with the new elements that are in Gen 5, it seems possible to me that the Knights of Harmony go on to create a 7th bond or something like that. It's extremely easy for them to just use that as a retcon, or a way for them to be like, hey, there's new elements now because the Knights of Harmony made a 7th element now, or something like that. You know, maybe they give up their own elements or something. Who knows? But that really gives us a lot of ideas and theories and stuff like that we can talk about for Gen 5, and the ideas of the elements of harmony in that series and stuff. But anyway, that's essentially everything important that happened after Season 9 so far. There are a couple of comics in Season 10 that focus on smaller things, like Pinkie Pie's relationship. There's a Fluttercord moment or two there as well. Not anything that, like, says, hey, they're dating or whatever, but it's very exciting, and I honestly can't wait to see what else happens, because there seems to be, like, a lot of answers that are coming from the comics, and I hope that we get, answers in Gen 5 itself. I think it's very, very crucial that the movie or the follow-up series explains to us why so many things are different, from the way that Cutie Marks work to how Twilight's legacy was twisted into separating everyone, etc., etc. So we need answers in the movie. Even if we get the answers in the comics, we need a proper answer in the movie or the series or something like that, because that's not going to be a very good way of going about that. But that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think of all this information and what you think it could mean for Generation 5, and also let me know if you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all those wonderful things like that, because when you do those wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.